Spark something uncommon this holiday with just the right gift from Uncommon Goods. If you haven't finished your holiday shopping yet, don't panic. We've got a secret source for incredible original gifts, and that's Uncommon Goods. They've got unique handpicked gifts for everyone on your list all in one spot. I'm currently scouring the site for an upcoming white elephant party. They have so many truly original items such as customizable ornaments, a pickleball paddle snack tray, and hand-painted floral flat candles. Uncommon Goods has something for everyone, and not the same old selections you could find just anywhere. And even better, with every purchase you make at Uncommon Goods, they'll give $1 back to a nonprofit partner of your choice. They've donated more than $3 million to date. To get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/dateable. That's uncommongoods.com/dateable for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods, we're all out of the ordinary.
Yes, we all know the quality of makeup and skincare products are important, but have you ever thought about how you apply them is even more important for results? Since 2019, Anissa Beauty has been leading the way in creating vegan and cruelty-free makeup and skincare brushes that are safe for your skin and the planet and are designed to optimize the application and absorption of skincare products. Their popular Pinnacle Foundation brush has made such a big difference for me. I used to hate wearing foundation because it always felt so caked on, but with this brush, I can use so little product and it goes on flawlessly due to its patented triangular shape. Anissa Beauty's brushes deliver value and quality like no other. The same goes for their Pinnacle Skin Brush, which has completely changed how I apply skincare. I no longer use my hands to apply my products. Check out the Pinnacle Foundation brush as well as several other amazing brushes at anissabeauty.com and get 30% off site-wide with the code DATEABLE. That's ANISA beauty.com. And don't forget to use the code DATEABLE. Hi, I'm Yue Xu.
And I'm Julie Kraftchick.
We're active daters turned dating insiders.
Here to dive into everything modern dating and relationships.
Welcome to Dateable. Hello, friends.
Welcome back to another episode of Dateable.
Are you keeping cozy, Julie?
I am. We are in fall. I cannot believe it's Thanksgiving already.
It doesn't feel like every year, November, I'm always like, it doesn't feel like it's Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it was fun doing like our pre-Thanksgiving get together in LA.
Yeah, in Orange County.
In Orange County.
The most festive place on earth.
Yeah. And now we're in the season. And what are you doing for Thanksgiving this year?
Hang out with my parents. We are just going to eat. I want to do a turkey trot. I've never done a turkey trot ever. Have you ever done one?
Yeah, like a 5K.
Yeah. Like people dress up, right? It's festive. Okay.
Yeah.
That's my goal. What are you going to do?
Nice. I'm staying local, which will be good. I'm just going to a friend's house and it's like 5 of us. So not a big thing either, which will be really nice.
I still remember the Friendsgiving that we had at our mutual friend's house. That was still one of like the best Friendsgivings I've been to.
I love Thanksgiving when it's like just chill. Like I like going home for the holidays. I think this year, especially with just traveling from Italy, I was like, I need to just chill and like not travel really outside of going to LA, but that's like an hour flight. So it's a little different. I do have good fond memories of the times when it was just laid back because it's, I don't know, just like all the holiday travel stress is not there. Not to say that I don't enjoy going back home. I absolutely do. I typically alternate every other year.
It's so hard to make that flight though around this time of the year. The airports are packed. People are grumpy. They're like trying to get home. Traveling this time of the year is such a nightmare.
Yeah. It is nice though. I don't know. There is something like nice to be with family for the holidays too.
For sure. Yeah.
But
for sure.
I guess whatever people's plans are, we hope that you have a great holiday. I think like dating, there's no one right way to do the Thanksgiving.
I still remember last year for Thanksgiving, my parents and I did a brunch. I remember there was a couple on a first date.
Oh yeah. I remember you talking about this.
I still remember that. Like, that's interesting. That's an interesting new way to spend Thanksgiving, but they had fun.
I mean, I guess if like you're both transplants, you don't have friends in the area, or I guess if you're doing a brunch, you could always be doing a dinner with people later too.
Yeah, that's true. But first date...
I think this time of year too is also, in my opinion, an okay time to take a natural break from dating too, which is very much in theme with our conversation today is, how do you make that dating break work for you, especially when you're feeling a little dating fatigue. And I think personally, the holiday season, it's always like hard to plan dates and coordinate because people are, traveling all over the place and there's just a lot of like holiday events. I feel like now through Christmas is kind of just like this social like wash. Like there's so much going on in those weeks. So I feel like this is like a very nice natural break to gear up for the new year in January, which is the most popular dating app day. What is it, like Super Sunday, the first Sunday of the year? So I think it's a nice natural break to go there.
They love to call this time cuffing season because everyone's scrambling to find somebody to spend the cold nights with. So we're urging you to do the opposite, which is what we're calling fluffing season.
Yeah.
Get yourself ready for the new year. Put yourself first. Do some self-care. Do the things that you've been wanting to do this year, haven't gotten to. Like prioritize that before trying to find a warm body to stay warm with.
Yeah. And what better timing? You do all this fluffing in winter and then in January our book comes out. So you could hit the ground running. Perfect timing.
Yes. It's like surreal to think about how long we've waited for this book to come out. And now it's just around the corner. Like we're ready, but also not ready.
Yeah. And Yue and I have been hard at work doing the audiobook reading, which has been actually a lot of fun, I thought. I think I was like a little nervous about it. We've heard from even podcast hosts that it's very different than doing a podcast. Mm-hmm. And I was definitely like, I've never done this before. I'm not really sure how to do it. And I mean, I think our producer, we'll give her a shout out, Erica, has been really wonderful in, balancing the line of pushing us, but then also like, making it that we feel comfortable and good to go. So she's been doing a stellar job there. And, I just had more fun with it than I was expecting.
Good to hear. I think Erica has been so supportive. I was trying to describe the process last night to a friend, and I find it very inherently awkward because it's so counter to how I would read a book. So when I read a book, not out loud, every sentence is a discovery, right? By the end of that sentence, you have accomplished knowing what the point of that sentence is. But in reading an audiobook, you read each sentence with the intention of the sentence before it ends. You can't read with a discovery mindset.
Yeah.
So there were a few times that I would finish a really fucking long sentence and then be like, okay, actually, I need to read that again because that's not exactly what we're trying to say. That's very awkward for me.
Yeah, but I'm excited to see how this all shapes up. I admit I'm more of a book reader than an audiobook listener. I know you're the opposite. So it's been good to kind of get both perspectives. I think maybe because we do so much audio, I'm like, I need something away from audio. But I know obviously a lot of our listeners will probably really like the audiobook because, you obviously enjoy this medium in general. So I'm excited to see the differences in the different mediums. It's almost like we have two different books in a way.
I was actually just thinking that because I've been reading and listening to the book Outlive by Peter Attia. And the first half of the book is very much audio friendly. You can listen to your car or multitask, and because he's setting the scene of what's going on in healthcare. But then the second half of the book is very much like you want your hands on the book because you want to be taking notes. You want to be earmarking. And I felt like with that book, I really needed both. And I think our book is very similar, actually. I think part of it, enjoy the audio version. The whole thing, you'll enjoy the audio version. Don't get me wrong. But some parts you'll want to take a pause because you'll probably want to take notes and do some of the material that we have in there.
Yeah. And like we've been doing a ton of podcasts and we met with one of our favorites. We went on her podcast, Nikki Novo. We'll give her a shout out. One of our audience favorites as well. And she was like, who did these illustrations? This brings a whole nother dynamic to it. So yeah, whatever your preferred way of reading, listening, or both, whatever it is, make sure to do that pre-order now. We are getting getting into our final months before, and it matters so much. Plus, you get a bunch of stuff for free. So it feels like a win-win that you can use now.
Yes, you can definitely use all the freebies now. And the answer to that question is Julie. Julie did the illustrations. The book is worth buying in hardcover just for the illustrations alone, because we cannot describe that in audio. That would be very hard to do.
Those are omitted in audiobook.
Like there's no way you could get the full effect. So yeah, get the printed version just to see the illustrations.
Yeah, so we are encouraging everyone, take your time. I mean, by all means, if you want to date this holiday season, date. We're not saying to ever stop dating, but if you're feeling fatigued and you're like, oh, I just, there's so much going on with the holidays, like also give yourself permission to take a break too. I feel like taking those resets really does help you come back stronger. And we're really excited to have this conversation with the host of the podcast, The Psychology of Your 20s, Jemma Sbeg. We really love her podcast and admire her work, and we've been wanting to do a collaboration. We will also be on her podcast, so check that out as well. But, she has such a great story of just how she was feeling like she just kept seeing the same things happen over and over in her dating life. And she's like, something needs to change. So she took that intentional break, and then she met her partner right after.
Yeah, almost seemed a little magical, which it is when you put yourself first and remove yourself from what you've been accustomed to doing. Magic can happen. And I'm so glad that she was able to describe her journey, some of the techniques and frameworks that she used for her dating sabbatical, because it's not just about like uninstalling the apps, which many of us have done, and saying, I'm done with dating forever. She took a very intentional break that set her up to meet someone who she was really not supposed to meet.
Yeah. Ideally, we all meet someone right after the break, but I know I've taken a few breaks in my time, and it's not always so linear. That being said, I can look back and be like, that was definitely time well spent, and it still propped me up for when it was time to actually meet my person. But I think this episode is really great for anyone that is feeling like they're struggling with dating and they just need a break.
If you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling frustrated, if you're feeling like there's got to be a better way, well, Jemma can really highlight a fresh perspective on that.
Yep. And what you'll get out of it, we're really hoping that you're able to get some new perspective of how to reset your dating life that's more effective than that cycle of uninstalling and reinstalling the dating apps. And then also that you feel inspired, that you can come out of whatever you're going through.
Optimism, not in the toxic way, but you'll come out of it feeling like, yes, I am going to meet my person. It's not something that only certain people deserve. Everybody deserves to meet their special person or people. And it's going to happen to me when the time is right.
I was thinking about this the other day. I think at this point, I have very few single friends. Like in San Francisco, I can think of a couple single friends I have, but they don't actually live in San Francisco with me. And I think at the end of the day, it's like everyone has been through struggles and everyone has been through that moment of fatigue and wondering if it was going to happen for them, but you get out of it. Like you find that path out, and it takes everyone their own timing and journey to go there. But I really firmly believe if you are, listening to this podcast every week, that means that this is important to you. And if this is important to you, it will happen for you. It's just getting out of your own way and removing the barriers and changing the way you do things. Like that will eventually get you there.
I think when we talk about magic, I just want to bring it back to magic again, is some of this will seem magical because you can't explain it. But a part of why we love doing this podcast and partly why we encourage you to listen regularly is because even if you take no physical action from what you've heard, it changes your energy.
Yeah.
And it changes what you are willing to see in the world. Even just 1 hour listening to us and you walk out into the world, it changes some sort of chemical makeup in the universe. Yes, you could call it magic, or yes, you could just call it energy shifting. And so we really hope that after this episode, you're going to feel a major energy shift, especially at a beautiful time of the year where the leaves are changing, the seasons are changing, people are changing, everything's going through a metamorphosis of sorts, and you will see how much this is going to benefit you.
Yeah, I think this time of year, it's a time for reflection. We often take inventory at the end of a year. Also, I do know that like Thanksgiving isn't always easy for people because there's a lot of pressure that comes from family members. Like if you listen to last week's brunch talk, we address some of that in a way that you can handle, like how you interact with the people that may be grilling you on parts of your love life that you either do or don't want to go into. But this time of year does bring up a lot. So I think this is a perfect kind of like TLC episode that just like gives you a big hug.
Just like our book.
Yes.
I think it gives people a big hug.
Yeah.
A big, warm hug.
It definitely does. I remember when our editor, Ronnie, will give her a shout out, when she finished it, she was like, I feel like I just got a hug. That's what she said.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like how it felt different to her too than like some of the other books out there that, especially in the self-help space, there's always so much that's focused on what you're doing wrong, what you need to change about yourself. And we're really not taking that stance at all. We think you're all dateable. I think you are dateable exactly the way you are. It's just modern dating that's getting in the way. And we're here to normalize that you're not alone with what you're experiencing. And how do you understand just the dynamics that are happening so you can move past them and say like, I'm going to move past this and have the relationship I want. And we feel like, from all the people we've talked to in our own experiences, it's a really simple framework that we believe all of you can implement if you just have these tools.
For so long, people always say like, I don't have dating figured out. Nobody has dating figured out. And we were saying that for a long time too. It's true. Nobody has dating figured out because you don't need to figure out dating in order to have the love life that you want. Our book, we figured it out. We figured a way out.
Yes.
Of modern dating, not a way in and how to trick the system and hack this and the little like shortcuts you can do. That's what people mean when they say, oh, they want to figure it out. They're trying to figure out the system.
Yep.
Fuck the system. Yeah. Oh my God. We're like, the system. We figured a way out. And we hope that this book will help you get there. And also as a way to thank yourself, because around this time, we're always thinking about gifting other people. Why don't you gift yourself with this book? Because this will be the ultimate prize as you start the new year.
And it's like a double gift because you get the gift when it comes out, but you also get all the extras that are free right now. We have our modern dating survival guide. We have our dating anxiety guide. And we also have the 25 questions to ask in the first month of dating. So all of that becomes yours instantly as soon as you pre-order, enter your order number, and it's yours. So all the gifts.
Yes. It's such a great way. It's such a great way for us to show you our appreciation. So we hope you'll accept our gift to you.
Yep. So howtobedateable.com. And also make sure that you are on our mailing list and looking for emails because we all know Black Friday, Cyber Monday, this time of year, we have some stuff that up our sleeves that we're going to be sending out. So make sure to pay attention and see what comes your way and get all the gifts. All the gifts.
100% off the free stuff. That's the promo.
All the gifts. Okay. We could talk about all the gifts all day long, but before we do, let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors. The holiday season is right around the corner, and I know the perfect gift that I will most definitely be giving this year. Osea's limited edition Super Glow Body Set. It includes 3 of Osea's best-selling body care products at an incredible value, packed in a box so beautiful you can skip the wrapping paper. This is gifting made easy. We've said it before on the podcast, but both Yue and I are obsessed with their new Undaria algae body wash, which is part of the set. But all of the products in this set, the body wash, body oil, and body serum, feel like you're taking a luxurious trip to the spa. They just leave your skin feeling silky soft and unbelievably glowing. So maybe while you're at it too, you'll want to grab one for yourself. But hurry before this limited edition sells out. Give the gift of glow this holiday season with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now we have a special discount for our listeners. Get 10% off your first order site-wide with the code DATEABLEPODCAST at OseaMalibu.com. Want to add some holiday cheer into the bedroom? Spice up your life using the natural power of cannabis with Via. We're obsessed with their best-selling High Love Gummy that really intensifies any sexual experience. With its unique blend of pleasure-enhancing cannabinoids, libido-strengthening herbs, and a medium dose of THC, Via's really created one mind-blowing gummy. You can even get their High Love bundle either as an early present for yourself or a loved one. I personally like their THC-free gummies too. Their flow state is my fave because you guessed it, it puts me into that right focus. So whatever your threshold, they have you covered with the highest quality hemp sourced from trusted, independent owned American farms. If you're 21 plus, head to viahemp.com and use the code DATEABLE to receive 15% off. That's VIIA hemp.com and use the code DATEABLE at checkout. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Take your passion and pleasure to a whole new level with High Love from Via Hemp. Okay, let's hear from Jemma.
We love having fellow podcasters on the show. It's just so much fun. And we already had a whole conversation before we start pressing record. But we've got Jemma here, the host of Psychology of Your 20s, to talk about dating fatigue. And you experienced this quite deeply, but you also came out on the other side with a newfound respect and appreciation for dating, and you found a partner. So we want to hear about your journey through all of that. But Jemma, welcome to Dateable.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We're so excited to get into this with you. Let's hear your own story of how you took that dating break and it ended up being that reset that you needed. So maybe take us back to that time.
Mm-hmm.
What was going on in your dating life that was making you feel so fatigued?
I had just moved to Sydney. I'd just gotten out of this terrible situationship, and then I found myself in another situationship shortly afterwards. So a double whammy. I was in Sydney, I just moved here, and I feel like when you move to a new city and you're not dating, the one thing you're excited to do is just to date.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a whole new pool of people that you haven't seen on the apps 20 freaking times before, you know, all of these things. I was like, I'm excited, I'm ready, and I went at it. I was dating up a storm, but I think the problem was that I had no idea what I actually wanted. You know, loosely, I imagined that I wanted a boyfriend, I wanted a long-term relationship. I hadn't quite learnt that lesson yet. I'm not someone who can casually date. Like, it's just not in my DNA, but it was just this string of ghosting, and then, you know, we'd go on 3 dates that looked really promising, and then it would fizzle. You know, go on one date and it was just really boring, and it was just exhausting, and everything just felt like such an effort. I think something that a lot of people can relate to was I would download the apps one day and then delete them the next.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And then be like, I'm going to swear off these for the next 6 months, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Like, I'm just not going to do this. And then 3 weeks later, I'd be like, oh, but where's the dopamine? Wait, like, what if someone new has joined? Like, am I missing out? I found myself in another situationship because I was just like, oh, you know, you seem almost perfect, but the part where you want to date me isn't there. That's fine. We'll find that later. And after that, I was like, okay, we need to seriously reconsider how we're approaching this. So I did this huge dating detox. And then I was in Bali, and all my friends had these traumatic breakups. They're all on Hinge. They're all on the dating apps. And I was like, I could get a piece of that. It's been 6-7 months, you know. I was like, I just kind of want to get laid. You know, it's been a little while. And I met the first person I matched with, who wasn't even in Bali, let alone in the state where I was living in Australia. First match, and we've been together for like 2 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't end up seeing anyone in Bali. You know, I don't think people often have meet cutes on the dating apps, but I'm proud of our story, which was that re-downloaded the apps. The first person, kind of put it aside for a bit. He had already seen me come up. First person I saw was him, and my algorithm had actually glitched. So obviously previously when I downloaded Hinge, my previous settings were for Sydney, and I'd set them for Bali when I'd first re-downloaded it, but someone got through. Some random person, which is my now boyfriend. And the strange thing was, I live in Newtown in Sydney. Your Australian listeners will know that's like a really fun place to live. He's from a whole different part of Australia. He's from Wollongong. And he just happened to be in Newtown that night for like a pub crawl situation. So it was kind of like, it wasn't meant to happen, but it happened. And I just went into it as well with a completely new mindset.
Oh, we're going to go into all of it. And we're definitely going to circle back to, you know, meeting your now partner. But I want to go back to the dating burnout that was going on for you. We're like, okay, we got the story, but we are now going to unpack it. So situationship after situationship after situationship. I think our listeners are probably nodding their head and relating. I know for me, that was the final straw also, to take a break, because you're like, how many times can I do the same thing over and over again? Like, what else was going through your mind of like, I need to take that detox. I need to get off the apps and dating and meeting random people, all of it.
I just wasn't putting any time into my own life. You know, I'd have an empty night, I'd have spare time, and I'd be like, dating, I should go on a date with someone. And my emotions became entirely hitched to, and it's going to seem like a weird word, but like my performance on dates, my performance on the apps. And it was really quite just soul destroying and exhausting. I also just had this sense, and I don't know why, but I really had this sense that was like, the next person I meet is hopefully going to be the one. And so why not take full advantage of the aspects of being single that don't have to do with dating? So being able to really put time into my friendships, which I'm so glad I did. Being able to just travel. A lot of people, I think, like, we really want a relationship, and then you get one and you do realize that it is actually a series of compromises. There is this huge opportunity when you are single to do so much that you can still do when you're in a relationship, but it's harder to be like, hey, I'm going to go to Europe for 3 months.
Right.
Sorry if you can't come with me. Like, I'm going to move without considering you. That kind of situation.
Yeah. Back to this dating burnout mentality, though. I've been there as well. I've uninstalled the apps and thought, I need to take a break. When you were doing this for both of you, what did you think was going to happen? For me, I thought the apps would magically refresh and give me a whole new pool of amazing unicorns that didn't exist the first time around. I just need to take some time away from the apps. And then also I thought that if I just go and reset my mindset, I will come back a more positive, optimistic person. What did you both think was going to change?
I think that what I was expecting to change was, yeah, like magically someone else would appear. I would have more energy for it. The thing I always say to people, though, is that much like career burnout or work burnout, dating burnout happens in 12 stages. And so by the time that you're at like stage 12 of like, I do not want to do this anymore, I am like sick and emotionally tired, that's stage 12.
Yeah.
You're there. So when you delete the apps, you maybe only go back like 2 to 3 stages. You might go back to like stage 10 or stage 9, where you have a second wind, or where you feel like you've somewhat rested, but you still aren't fully back to who you want to be. And that's what I was finding, was I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm not burnt out anymore. It's like, no, recovering from burnout is like a year-long process for dating as well.
I mean, mine, I feel like ended up being like at least a year when I took the time off dating. And this came after a tumultuous breakup. Yue remembers that is like,
oh yeah,
I met you like within some of this time. And I don't think I was looking for any outcome. Like, I think I was at stage 12, like you were just saying, Jemma, that I was already so burnt out that just the thought of even going on a date, because I was heartbroken still, I was confused why things just still kept not working. And when I thought I found someone that could be more, it ended up not being. So I think there was just a lot of confusion and heartbreak and all of it, that I wasn't even thinking about what was on the other side. I just knew I needed time away.
And it sounds like the common thread for all of this, the motivation to go on a reset or a sabbatical, is because you were sick of the same things happening over and over again. There was a pattern. For you, Jemma, there was a situationship for the third time. For you, Julie, it was like this person that like kept coming in and out of your life. You're like, I need more than this. Do you think a reset is necessary, or can we just identify the pattern before it becomes a pattern and address that versus like going on a full reset? Jemma, what do you think?
It's interesting because there's this saying of like, you can't heal in the same environment that hurt you. So I do think that there is that necessary level of distance. I think there's 2 situations here. You're listening to this episode, you've arrived at this stage already burnt out, in which case the reset is necessary. But if you have just returned from a reset, or you feel actually quite invigorated and excited for dating, then you can put in those like preventative, protective measures. Maybe that's limiting to how many people you're allowed to be actively dating at any one time, limiting when you're allowed to be on the apps. I actually have a friend who has Tinder on her laptop. So it's only when she's on her laptop. Like,
so there's a desktop version of
I didn't even know
apps?
that.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's so
Wait, how do you swipe?
You click.
You click, yeah. I I wonder if they still have it. When she told me about it, it was maybe like a year ago, and she now is in a relationship, but that's how she would do it. And on her work computer nonetheless, on company time.
Wow.
She's like, I really need to limit how many times I'm doing this.
Get paid to date. Yes.
I'm curious, Jemma, what you were saying about like the 12 stages. Do you have like concrete stages, or is that more just like a estimate?
Oh my gosh, no, there is concrete stages. So they were created by this German who was examining burnout in the workplace.
Okay.
Yeah, so some of those stages are withdrawal, so withdrawing from your friends, from your work, from your family, feeling of emptiness. Then there is a stage where you really start to notice physical symptoms as well of exhaustion. There's like a couple other stages where you start to feel quite apathetic. Of like, oh, I just don't even care. Depersonalization as well. You're on dates, you're meeting people, and you just don't even feel like you're present. I would really recommend go and look up these 12 stages. They were initially applied to work, but you can kind of apply them to anything really, because it's very psychological.
And the reason I ask, because I think to Yue, your question of like, can you date at the same time? Probably depends what stage you're in. The way I view it is if dating is not feeling energizing, then there's no point in doing it. Like if you're like dreading going on the date or thinking it's not going to work out before you even get there, like why even do it? Because the mindset is not there. If you're in a place where you're still able to feel energized, excited to meet a new person, even if you know it might not lead somewhere, then by all means, I think like healing is never done like in a vacuum. But I think a lot of us, it just adds to it. That's how I felt. It was like when I got ghosted, it just added to it. It compounded it. And it makes you feel worse. So I think it really is like, what stage are you in that burnout cycle?
I totally agree with you there.
Jemma, how long was your break?
Probably like 7 months.
And did you intentionally say, I'm going to take a 7-month break?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think my friends thought that I was joking because I'd said to them before that I was going to do the same thing. And I would last like 2 weeks. But this time I was like, no, we are committing to this, mind, body, and soul. We're not going to break this rule. And it was almost like I came out of the 6 months and didn't even realize that I had done it. And was like, oh, I guess I can start dating again if I want.
So what did that look like for the parameter? Because I think mine was maybe like a little less intentional. It was like the state of where I was, where it sounds like yours was like, you're like, I'm going to make this 6-month container and like have this time that I reset. Were there ground rules for you? Like what was off limits? What was part of it? Walk us through it.
One big question I always get about it was like, what if you met the one? What if suddenly someone walked into your life and they were Prince Charming and they were everything you ever wanted? And I was like, I would still not date them.
Okay.
Right.
Because it wasn't just like I'm abstaining from dating because it's exhausting. It was also, this is a really sacred time that I need in my life because I have spent, the first 7-8 years of my adult life either falling in love, being in love, or heartbroken. And there has been nothing in between that. And it was just this really nice space. So my rules were no dates, just no dates at all, no dating apps. And I will say, I didn't have to say no to anyone at any point. Because also the environments that I was putting myself in, I wasn't going out to the bar with my friends, my single friends. I was spending a lot of time doing the podcast. I was going rock climbing. I was going on girl trips with my besties out into the mountains. So it was really easy to just be I was holding myself accountable in that I wasn't actively searching for it, but also I was lucky in that nothing really came my way, probably because I have this big leave me alone banner.
Right. The
over
vibe.
the top of my head as
yeah.
well. The vibe was I'm not interested in you. I would go to a party and I wouldn't be oh, who are the single men in the room?
Right. I can relate to that. I think it's even if you were out at a bar, the focus was more on talking to your friends than seeing and scoping out the vibe and the scene. I guess the activities you mentioned, I think Yue and I are huge proponents of taking the break. But kind of what you were saying earlier is what we want to avoid people doing is taking the break to be away from dating, but then just uninstalling, reinstalling, uninstalling, reinstalling, and still have dating occupy all your time and energy when you're not actually dating. I guess for you, what activities did you turn to and why? How did they fuel your soul?
I'm the biggest fan of a hobby, and I feel every person needs at least 3 or 4 hobbies. If you're not in a relationship, you're not working really, really hard and you're not fulfilling that, especially if you're someone who is single, right? You don't have kids, you don't have any things like that. It's just such a valuable time to really put energy back into things that feed your soul. So a big way that I knew that I was going to stay committed to this abstinence period was I really dove in deep and committed to doing my hobbies regularly. So I booked like a 6-week art course that I did 2 of them. So 12 weeks, every Tuesday, there was nothing happening on that day other than I was going to this art course, and I got really into my boxing. And at the time, like the podcast was slowly growing. So that was like taking in a lot of my effort. I think sometimes we can feel like dating is a project. So replace that project with something that is 100% going to give back to you, like to do with your career, like to do with maybe your spiritual growth or a health journey. And you find that all that energy you would have otherwise put into someone else. And do they like me? Do they not? Spending hours getting ready for dates, thinking about them. You suddenly have all this free time, and seeing that as an opportunity is like a great way to be excited to be single and to be in that dating detox phase.
I'm so with you on the hobbies. When I was listening to your hobbies episode, I was like, yes, yes, yes. Because you also talk about hobbies being something active instead of just kind of passive. And you gave this a great example of, do you consider watching movies a hobby?
Mm-hmm.
And if you say yes, then you probably prefer like more passive hobbies, but you yourself like active hobbies. And I think it's the same thing of when you're taking this reset, you want to be participating in something active, not distracting you like the passive scrolling or shopping or, you know, the things that like don't use your mind and you're not working towards something. There's something very productive about like an active participatory hobby. What was like your favorite one that you really dove into?
Oh, and I still do it. I also did like a ceramics course.
Ooh, that sounds amazing.
Cool.
It's so fun. Genuinely, I have like, and I still continue. There's like a big pile of Christmas ceramics gifts like right next to me. I just feel like you're right. The more active and mental or physical or creative a hobby is, the more likely you are to get into this flow state. Like a flow state is my favorite state to ever be in. And it's so rare that we find that. And I don't think you can get into a flow state on dating apps. Mm-hmm. Dating is not a hobby.
I mean, it's interesting that you said that you felt like dating was becoming your hobby, like before this reset, that so much time was being taken there. And we do see this with a lot of people that we talk to. Very common. And, you know, of course, if things aren't going your way, that's just continuing that burnout cycle.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Yue, like with you, like tennis was like your big thing post breakup. And it was a way to obviously like clear your mind, but also just get that like energy back, like that you want to radiate out. So it's like, one, it gives you something to talk about on dates when you start dating again. But it's also like the vibe and fulfillment that you can find outside of dating. That's really important when you actually do go back into the dating world.
But I want to make it clear that don't do it just to fill time while you're on your reset.
No.
And then you say, okay, now I'm ready to date. And then you ditch all your hobbies. Like we see this happening. Like people are just trying to fill their time. So Jemma, how are you able to distinguish the two? Like when you got back into dating, you still had all the things that were, you know, feeding your soul.
Yeah, I think because I made them non-negotiables for myself. And it was also a way of really listening to my body and my mind. You know, when you eat something and you can just tell that it's not nice and so you don't eat that again, like you eat some weird chicken and then you don't want to eat chicken for a while.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so when I sacrifice my hobbies to go on dates, when I sacrifice these classes, when I let this take over my time, it's like bad chicken and I feel worse. So I need to listen to my body and realize that why would I be actively doing the thing that makes me feel worse? That's like self-sabotage to a T. You almost don't want to do it. And that was really something that when I went into dating again, I will say I met like my now partner so quickly, and that is not a promise. It's not going to happen to everyone, but the way that I started dating him was so different to the way I had dated previously, where I was like, I really like my life now.
Yeah.
I love my life. This is fun. Like I am really enjoying this. I do so much fun stuff. I'm really cool. Have all these cool friends, and I don't know who you are yet. And I know these things are great, so I'm not going to let you come in, and I'm not going to allow you to bulldoze this, you know, through my own obsession. And it was something I really knew about myself, was that I meet someone who I really like and I'm like, great, so we're going to hang out every single day this week and we're going to have zero boundaries. And yeah, don't worry if I have to cancel plans. Don't worry if I have to not go to the gym, not do the things I love. You're the thing I like now. And I really was like, we're not letting that happen again, because that's how you just lose yourself in relationships. I don't know if that was your experience as well.
Oh, 100%. I think the biggest thing, like, of having, dating be a part of your life, but not have your life revolve around dating is huge. And, setting that boundary of just, that is the best time to find someone too, is like when you're happy and you have a lot going on. I think in terms of like the dating break, there's one side of like finding yourself again. That's really important and building up that life. The other side that we touched upon earlier is like reflecting of these patterns and what is it that you were doing before and where do you want to go? Can you kind of tell us about that side of your break, Jemma?
Yeah, because it was a massive part of it, actually. There was a lot of journaling. There was a lot of, actually, I think, accountability around these previous relationships. I can't just blame the guy. Yes, they may have done bad things. They may not have treated me well, but these were things that I saw early on that I chose to sweep under the rug. These were things that I knew I didn't like in a partner, and yet I was like okay to tolerate. And of course, we're not talking about anything abusive here. It was more like, why do I keep dating people who don't have any ambition when I know I'm really ambitious? Like, that's not their fault. They're just who they are. But I'm coming into it being like, why aren't you different for me? Of course, the relationship isn't going to work. Why am I dating people who don't want commitment when that's something that I want? I'm setting us both up to fail. And I remember I had a list. Nearing like at some point during this period, I made this list of when I start dating again, here are 10 things that I absolutely want. And I remember saying to a friend, if you can't choose 5 things that you are selective about, you are going to settle. It's actually better to have more things that you are really certain of and that are non-negotiables for you than less. Because people who can't even think of, 1 or 2 things that they would really want in a partner, it's like they're there. You're just maybe a bit insecure about the idea that they wouldn't want you if you didn't want them, or that you're going to have too high standards. So I had this list that I was very firm and clear on. And I remember being like, okay, when I start dating again, every person who comes into my life, it's almost like a job application. If you don't meet these things, I just kind of know it isn't going to work. So let me save myself the pain. Some of them were, must be looking for commitment.
I love it.
Yeah.
I had the same one. The must be looking for commitment. It feels like the bare minimum, yet so many times
I know.
we don't hold ourselves up for that one.
What else was on your list, Julie?
I think the first time I did the dating break, I realized like what I wanted a partnership to feel like more. I had a list actually, but I had like 50 things and I had a lot of superficial things on there too. So I'm not sure if I'd recommend that path. I like narrowing it down a little more, like what Jemma was saying. But for mine that time, it was definitely this vision of how I wanted like holidays to look or birthdays together, and realizing that like I had accepted a lot of like subpar treatment of people that would never show up for me the way I wanted to. So I think that was a big piece. And then I feel like I had like a couple iterations of this, but right before I met my partner, I feel like I got a lot more clear on like those real essentials, like consistency. I've talked about that one. That's a huge one. And then like someone that I feel like my best self around and stuff like that. That was a little less about qualities and more about like the relation to the other person.
I like what you said. It was more about how they made you feel. And I think mine's very different because I'm quite analytical. So it was very much like must want commitment, must have family values, must be close to his family. I remember like an ex used to just be so mean to his parents, and I love my parents. And I was like, I don't want to raise kids with someone like that.
Oh, that says a lot.
And then there were things about like the future where I was like, it was almost like I was trying to anticipate things that could eventually become roadblocks. So one of them was like must want children, must have a serious job, I think was on there. Some of them got a bit silly. But the serious job one, again, was from experience. Guys, it's embarrassing to say, but I had only ever dated people who were entrepreneurs or who were doing PhDs or who were unemployed, who were like DJs. And I was like,
oh, DJs.
And not the kind of entrepreneurs that you guys might be used to, like the kind of entrepreneur
not the
who's
Silicon
like,
Valley ones. Yeah.
No. Who's just like, I just want an excuse to not have to do any work.
Yeah. The unemployed title. Yes.
I mean, I'm obviously not going to give away too much, but we have in our book a perfect partner equation. And I think it does kind of summarize a bunch of those. There's, 3 parts to it, which is fundamentals. And like, I look at like, I need someone that has a job,
Mhm.
that is a fundamental for you because it's getting to like a deeper root of like, I want someone that is motivated or someone with stability. Like there's always something a little deeper of like what that means for you. And then the feelings part, that how do you actually want to feel around this person? And then the future side of you can't have like wildly off futures. Of course, there's a lot that's still TBD as your relationship unfolds. But like you were saying, Gemma, like if you know you want kids, why be with someone where it's like a constant uphill battle if that's not what they want?
100%. And it's also just kind of like the mentality of you're either dating for marriage or you're dating for a breakup. It really stuck with me at that point because I was like, all these people I was dating, I didn't want to marry them. I didn't want them in my future. And yet I let them take control of my present in so many ways. That was very painful to realize that.
Oh,
How did you come to that realization?
yeah.
The reason I came to the realization was because I looked back at my dating history and was like, every single one of these people is exactly the same. To the point where 2 of them actually lived in the same house at different times. And it was like a rental. And one of them had lived there like a year prior. They were like the previous tenant. That had nothing to do with who they were, but it was one of those things where I was like, wow, that's really similar. What else is similar about them? Oh, like none of these guys really have friends. None of them really have ambition. None of them really treat me that well. None of it, like there was just whole pattern where I was like, I'm dating the same person over and over again and expecting a different outcome.
I want to dive into this even more, but before we do, let's take a quick break to hear from our partners.
With this holiday season, I have some major aspirations of learning a new language so I can be better prepped when I travel internationally next year. I feel like being able to speak the language in the country I'm visiting can open doors to meaningful conversations and better cultural appreciation. I mean, how else am I going to get the lowdown on how people date locally? And now with Rosetta Stone, the most trusted language learning program, I can make those new language dreams a reality. Available on desktop or as an app, Rosetta Stone truly immerses you in the language you want to learn. For example, there are no English translations, so you really have to learn to speak, listen, and think in that language, allowing for fast language acquisition. And the built-in true accent feature gives you feedback on your pronunciation, just like having a personal trainer for your accent. Don't put off learning that language. There's no better time than right now to get started. For a limited time, Dateable listeners can get Rosetta Stone's lifetime membership holiday special. This offer will not last long. Visit rosettastone.com/today. That's unlimited access to 25 language courses for the rest of your life. Redeem your holiday offer at rosettastone.com/today today for yourself or as a gift that keeps giving.
November is one of my favorite months, with Thanksgiving around the corner, pumpkin spice lattes, and slipping into a cozy sweater from Quince. I already got my Mongolian cashmere sweater that's only $50, which I still can't get over how much of an absolute steal this is because they partner directly with top factories and cut out the cost of the middleman, which passes the savings on to us. And it's not just the sweaters. It's all of Quince's items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. As we speak, my ultra stretch straight leg pants are being shipped, and I cannot wait to pair them with my sweater because that sweater is so damn cozy, and if it was socially acceptable, I'd wear it every day. Get cozy in Quince's high quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/dateable for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/dateable to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/dateable.
You know what I don't miss at all? That horrendous week right before my period when I feel like crawling out of my skin, and my skin is full of zits, mind you. Yes, PMS hits me hard, but now it's easier to manage with Estro Control by Happy Mammoth. Estro Control contains science-backed herbal extracts that help support hormonal health, especially during PMS. The way it does this is super interesting. The ingredients help support the liver, where our hormones are processed, and oftentimes PMS symptoms are caused by hormonal fluctuations. Estro control is also made specifically for women who are premenopausal, a time when, PMS can turn into a beast. I know this firsthand. So for a limited time, you can get 15% off on your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use the code DATEABLE at checkout. That's happymammoth.com and use the code DATEABLE for 15% off today.
I'm curious if you had any like go-to books or resources or podcasts or anything like that, because I feel like sometimes I could hear people be like, okay, how do I even start to make sense of all of this? And like for me, we've had her as a guest on our podcast. Her name is Amy Spencer. She wrote this book, Finding Your Half Orange. And she had like what I was mentioning earlier, like these visualizations of think about like what you want your birthday to look like. And I literally would go to these hot springs that are like 40 minutes away. And I would like lay in the hot springs and just like do the visualization and use her book almost as a guide. I mean, the book was obviously like helpful to get you there, but it wasn't as like tactical as like do this step, then this step, but I almost like made it that way. I'm curious, like, did you have any of those resources?
I had so many. One of my friends runs this podcast called Date Yourself Instead. Liz, she's amazing. She just has these amazing pep talks that I would listen to a lot. Another resource, which is just really strange, and it actually is not a dating resource. It's just a book about your self-esteem and about figuring out who you are. It's called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert.
I love that book.
Right?
Yes.
It's about like being a creative, but it's really about how we sit with fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of maybe never finding anybody, fear of not being loved, of not being accepted, amongst other things. And I think the way that I really strengthened my approach to dating was by strengthening how much I actually valued myself and the love that I had for my own life. And that book was amazing for that.
Oh, it's funny you say that. You mentioned that book. I was just talking about that book with someone, and I was mentioning this part in the book where she talks about how ideas will come to you and you don't have to take all of them. You can set them free and give it to the next person. But she said, make sure you intentionally give it away. I can also see that in dating as well. People will come into your life. You do not have to take all of them in or date all of them, but you can intentionally set them free and say, there is someone better for this person out there. Like, go, go find them.
I love that you said that. It's like also in her TED Talks, if you don't want to read a whole book, she's incredible.
I'm glad that you talked about kind of like hybrid resources though, because I do think dating bleeds into the rest of your life and vice versa. So I think understanding what's the right combination for you, and obviously every listener that's here right now is going to have a different one because there's probably different things that fill everyone's cup up, and figuring out what those are, but then seeing like how they cross-pollinate, I think is actually really powerful as well, because when you're showing up in a way that you feel good, that will leak into your dating life when you feel the time to go back in. I think one thing we hear, though, often from people is, what if I enjoy this break too much that I don't want to date again? What would you say to them?
Great.
Great.
That's fabulous. Yeah, that's amazing. That's exactly what you should be aiming for. You want to really love it so much. Also, if you like it, what's bad about that? Also, it's kind of like when you change your mind, you can change your mind. You don't know whether that's going to happen. And if it does, you are going to be in the mindset that's going to dominate your current mindset. And that future mindset of, I really, really like this, I'm really enjoying this, I don't want to go back. That's going to be your reality at that time. And so you will be happy. So I don't think you can ever fear a situation in which you are content.
Maybe to add on to, let's say, I mean, obviously, of course, if people want to be single, like by all means be single. We have to get rid of this like mentality that one is better than the other. But let's say you're like enjoying this time, but you're like, I still want a committed relationship. That is more clear than ever from this period. I know I eventually want to get married and have a family, all of it, but I'm feeling good right now. And I know dating typically makes me feel bad. How do you get over that mindset to still go after what you ultimately want? Or is that something that you feel like just comes with time, that one day you'll wake up and be like, okay, I'm ready?
I think it does come with time, to be honest. Maybe if you get to a stage where you're like, maybe this would be for the best, you can put your toe back in and see how you're feeling. People can disagree with me, but I do just think it comes with time. I do just think the further you get into it, Maybe one day your attitude changes. Maybe you're bored of your current situation. You can take everything that you've learned and move back into the dating realm. I also feel like you'll be excited to see how you'll react now.
I think that was for me. I didn't have like a set like time end on mine. I wasn't like consciously I'm going to do 1 year, but there was a period that I'm just like, I want to meet people again. Like I'm excited to see like who's out there. And it was more of that excitement again over the fears or how heartbroken I was or how terrible dating was. It seemed like that was overarching. And I think once you're feeling that way, like keep following it. I think there is a fear that like I just won't ever feel that way. But I think that people could feel like that's alleviated because it does just kind of happen. I know that sounds vague to people that aren't in it, but
And it always does, doesn't it?
Yeah. And there's also a big difference between being intentionally single and then just like not actively looking. Like you can't just be not actively on the apps or going into a bar and being like, who are the single men in here? But you can be so open to meeting people. It all goes back to energy. And if it's like, oh, I'm really enjoying this life I've built for myself during this sabbatical, I'm going to keep living this life, but slowly open up my energy to meeting people and potentially dating someone. But it's not all consuming. And I think that's what I've learned in my resets is like, dating doesn't have to be so overwhelming and all consuming, and that everywhere I go, everywhere I look, there could be a potential partner there for me. I don't need to think that way. It's like I can be in a position of just attracting what is right and what is meant for me.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, Jemma. So you mentioned earlier that you realized that you do not like casual dating. And that was something that came out in this break. How did you come to that realization? And also, how did that impact like when you did go back on the apps and then met your now boyfriend?
I think that for a while I tried to convince myself that I was someone who could do it. And then I would just always be completely heartbroken. And I would get way too attached way too quickly. And even when we both were like, no, this is going to be casual, it'd be like a month in and I'd be like, okay, so have you changed your mind? And they'd be like, no, I told you this whole time. And I was like, oh, then why am I doing this? I remember when I went back to dating and I met my now boyfriend, like pretty soon in, I was like, what are you looking for? And he was like, oh, I don't really know. And I was like, okay, great. So this is what I'm looking for. And if you're not into that, that's totally okay. I really, really like you. So I hope that you are. But if you're not, just let me know now. So we were having sushi on Bondi Beach and I remember him kind of looking at me being like, oh, I didn't really think we were going to have this conversation now. But again, I was essentially like, it's okay if you don't want this, but I'm not going to waste my time. And he went away. He took a day or two to think about it. And he was like, no, I'm totally on the same page as you. And then 2 months later, we had another conversation about exclusivity. And I was like, so are we going to be exclusive? He was like, yeah, just let me take my time. And there was always this sense of like, we're moving forward together. I was a bit scared though. There were definitely times when I was like, okay, so you have until the end of the month. Otherwise, this is done.
Oh, wow.
Like, yeah, I was like, I just like you too much that if this is what it's going to be, I need to leave now because it's going to really hurt if I don't.
I think this is really interesting. I guess like I'm curious, the past situationships prior to your break, would you have put it out there what you were looking for the way that you did with your boyfriend?
No, definitely not. Because I was a cool girl, you know. I was like, yeah, I'm a cool girl, whatever. Like, I don't care. Like, I think even at a time I was like, no, I don't want anything serious. And I would say that to everyone. And in the back of my mind, I was like, don't lie. You do want something serious. That's all you've ever wanted. Like, that's who you are. And I knew that like very deep in my core. Otherwise, I think, because there was never a time when I could casually date and not feel attached to them, even when I didn't like them. If they didn't like me back, I would be like, oh, it was just part of who I was and I think the validation cycle.
So that's a huge shift from doing this reset. And then also this confidence to let someone take a little time to get there, but also to know that you are like, I want something real. And if they can't give it to me, then I'm going to have to walk away. So I like that you were able to like strike that balance, because I think that is a fear that a lot of people have is, well, will the same pattern just reemerge? And the reality is we can't control other people. You might have a situation where someone only wants a situationship, but what you can control is, do you stay in it or not?
Oh, 100%, Julie.
Yes.
I'm curious, like the holidays are approaching and it's a tough time for people. It's bringing up a lot. What advice would you have for people that are feeling the pressures of dating, that maybe want to take that dating break? or just even confronting these pressures of modern dating?
Well, this is a great time to do it because you're going to be so busy. Really. I know Christmas and the holidays can be like the loneliest time. They're also the time when you hopefully get to be around family, when you get to see old friends, when there's Christmas parties, when there's things to do. There's always shopping to be done, a meal to be cooked. People are so down for you to host like a Friendsmas or something community building. The time goes by really quickly as well. I feel like December to January is like, what just happened? So this is an amazing time to just test it out and to just be like, okay, I'm too busy right now to date. That's what I'm going to tell myself. The next month and a half, next month, I'm just not going to do it. And, you know, there's no big rules associated with it, but I am going to delete the apps. I'm just going to be in the moment. And then in January, really be like, do I feel better? I think your answer is going to be yes. And then see if you can commit to doing it for just a little bit longer. Really focus on how much you're going to get out of that experience. Really romanticize a single life and romanticize a dating detox the way that you might romanticize a new relationship. You know, romanticize the solo dates, romanticize like the long walks through the cold, listening to your favorite album, you know, just by yourself, romanticize like traveling, being creative, all those really cool things that you can do alone.
That's so great.
Love that.
Yeah, it's great to take a healthier approach and perspective on dating and know that give yourself grace, check in with yourself. When Julie came back from her sabbatical, I still remember you saying you went on a dating app date and you were like, nope, not ready. And I think that's okay to be like, okay, I'm going to try it out. I don't know how I'm going to feel, but then maybe I'm not there yet. That's okay. But take it at your own pace. And I think what I'm hearing from you is don't let the holidays dictate the tempo of what you're doing. You check in with yourself.
This has been such a good conversation, Jemma. Thank you for being with us. I mean, I think my biggest takeaway from all of this is sometimes you do need to slow down in order to speed up. And by doing an intentional break, and I agree with you that I think over the next couple months, like in the thick of the holiday season, is actually an ideal time to take the break because the reality is a lot of people are all over the place in terms of, you know, being back with family or traveling, and it is a hard time to date and then reset in the new year. This is a great, like, organic break. But wherever it is, take the break when you need it. My take continues to be as long as you are doing things that fill your cup, you are learning more about who you are and what you want, and then seeing how you can like stay true to that once you do kind of reemerge into the dating scene, then that is time well spent. And that actually can really propel you forward if you're using that time intentionally.
2 takeaways. One is about the dating fatigue and one is about the actual sabbatical. You mentioned work burnout. And in all this research about work burnout, they have all these signs of when an employee is about to burn out. One of them is like someone not turning on their camera during a Zoom call. Like that's one of the signs, right? So I think even in your story, we can recognize these signs in us too. We know you felt this feeling when you're in that third situationship, like, ooh, I'm starting to get that feeling again, like of being really drained and disappointed. That's a sign that I'm about to experience burnout. And then we're able to manage it if we can identify those risk factors. So I appreciate that you were like so clear on identifying that in yourself. And then for the dating reset, you moved forward with your life. And I think a lot of daters think when they do a reset, they pause their lives. It's a sit back and, you know, life doesn't go on right now. I'm just going to pause everything. You were like, I'm going to take up all these hobbies. I'm going to reconnect with friends. I'm going to do all the things I love to do. In fact, I'm going to do more of what I love to do. So that's a huge takeaway for our listeners is during your dating reset, whether it's during this holiday season or not, keep moving forward. Keep moving your life forward. And when you come out the other side, when you're ready to get back into dating, the same person who's been moving their life forward will meet you there. Otherwise, you're just going to meet all the losers who stayed behind at the last bus stop, like, not going on that bus. Right?
I feel like anytime you're like, all my time is being spent dating, it's a time to reevaluate what's going on.
Yeah.
That's always been a red flag for me. I'm like, am I putting way too much emphasis here and not really balancing other parts of life?
And you know, the other thing you were talking about of like when you can tell an employee is going to quit. is when they keep calling in sick.
Oh.
You know what I mean? So if your whole life is like dating and you keep being like, sorry, can't come. I just want to sit on the couch. I want to see my friends. You're a burnt out dater. I was just thinking about that with what you were saying. I was like, oh.
Interesting. So look for the signs. I like that. We don't ever talk about the signs of dating fatigue. I think that's something that we should think about and put together of like, how do those 12 stages show up in dating? And how can you check in of what stage you're in and then, get ahead of it or take that time if you need it?
Well, wonderful conversation. Thanks for telling us this very honest journey you had. So great that you're in this healthy partnership now. But that's not what we're celebrating here. We're celebrating how you got here, which is really the moral of the story. If people want to learn more about you and your journey and your podcast, where can they find you?
So I'm Jemma Sbeg. I'm the host of The Psychology of Your 20s. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. And I also have another book coming out, but not till April. So if you want to check out Person in Progress, we do talk about dating and dating detoxes, especially in your 20s. You can pre-order that on my website or find the link on my Instagram. Guys, thanks for having me as well. This was just a great time.
So wonderful.
Love it. We are definitely getting that book. Very excited.
Oh, thanks.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you. And thanks to all of our listeners. What did you learn from this episode? What was your takeaway? Are you in your 20s and you're experiencing something that Jemma's experienced on her podcast? Maybe you can share those stories too. Whatever it is that you took away from this episode, why don't you leave us a 5 stars rating and review in Apple Podcast? And then in the body of your review, you can copy and paste the same message. Hey, just listen to Jemma on Dateable. Here's what I learned. And here's something that I thought about after this episode. That really helps both of our shows quite a bit. And also it's a great way for you to give us some feedback. Of course, once you're on the internet, why don't you pre-order both of our books too? You can pre-order our book, howtobedateable.com. That's where you can find all the info. All right, we're going to wrap up this episode. Stay dateable.